A place for my first friends and my first teachers. A place for being creative and curious. A place where I learn and play. A place I love to go.
Education is a natural process carried out by the child and is not acquired by listening to words, but by experiences in the environment. Maria Montessori, 1943. Maria Montessori worked with thousands of children, observed many different environments, and met a countless number of people to create a revolutionary new method of education, leaving a legacy of new schools whose philosophies put their child first and teach the children not as a class, but as individuals. During the late 1800s to mid-1900s, Italy's government was technically considered a monarchy, meaning the king was ruler of all. But between 1925 to 1943, Benito Mussolini actually formed a dictatorship over the country, controlling every aspect of the government. Also, in 1859, the Cassetti Act was created in Italy, stating that it was mandatory that children attended primary school so that the illiteracy rate in Italy would drop. The schools were mainly public schools and were focused on the children reaching the secondary school level. They would push the children to learn all the required lessons, and things like speed of learning or amount of work were never questioned, as long as they taught the children everything they needed. Children were dropping out of primary school though, so when Mussolini came to power, he made it mandatory for children to stay in school until they were 14, believing they'd be more inclined to stay when they were older. This was not the way to persuade the children into staying in school, and one woman understood how to actually make the children passionate about learning. Maria Montessori was born in Italy and was raised by her parents who believed she was going to grow up and become a teacher, because that was the main career choice made by women during those times. But when Maria turned 13, she decided to attend an all-boys school to pursue her dreams of becoming an engineer. Her father was not pleased with her choices at all, but stood by her regardless. After she completed her years at her secondary school, she decided to look into the medical field as well. So she went on to University of Rome La Sapienza Medical School. She was the first woman in all of Italy to graduate, and she was also the first woman in Italy to become a doctor. Her first job with her new medical degree was working in an asylum where they kept the children who were deemed retarded. She was there just to check on them and treat them if they were sick, but she could not help but notice the children and their desire for interaction and knowledge. She said that she would observe the children playing with crumbs on the floor, not because they were hungry, but because they were yearning for something new to learn. She decided to use the children as her human guinea pigs to see if she could teach them new things like how to read or write. The people who were working at the asylum told her not to waste her time because the children were not capable of learning or grasping the things she was teaching, but she never gave up, and of course her hard work paid off. She did teach the children to read and write, which shocked everyone around her. This accomplishment made her forget about her doctor career, because she thought if this is what she could do with children who others thought were incapable of learning, who knows what she could do with children who were considered normal. The Italian government was ready to support her. They helped set up her first school. It was not the picture-perfect school because it was in the slums of Rome and initially was there for poor parents who couldn't afford other schools and needed to work all day. It was called Casa de Bambini, or Children's House. The school was what she called a prepared environment because everything had a place, and all the children knew exactly where everything went. Maria would do activities with the children like pouring water from one pitcher to another, sweeping the floor, or just observing a bowl of beads for a bit. It was all set up to stimulate the senses and give the child a choice in what they were going to do next. It was designed for every child individually. She would never group children together that were not on the same level, and would always make sure that the assignment the child was working on was going to help them later on, because there was nothing worse than wasting time. During the beginning stages, people all around were skeptical of this new way of learning. This new idea was quite revolutionary, and people didn't understand how anyone could learn any other way other than how it had been done for years. They could not comprehend that a child was learning just by looking at beads or counting and aligning things. They said this was just a lazy way of teaching and that the child was not really getting everything Maria claimed they were. William Hurd Kilpatrick disapproved of Maria Montessori's methods from the beginning. He thought they were too relaxed and the child was not using their time wisely. Kilpatrick was an American educator working mostly at universities and colleges and was a supporter of the old-fashioned way of learning. So after observing some of Montessori's work, he returned to America and told all of how her method was not effective. Not very many listened, though, and just 4 years after her first school opened, radical activists like Alexander Berkman and Emma Goldman brought Montessori-like materials to the United States. The children, too, were not always as cooperative. They would try to take advantage of the relaxed situation, but instead of punishing the child verbally or physically, Maria would just not let the child do anything. They would sit and watch all the other children busily working. After time went on, the children realized they were respected in this environment, making them want to work as hard as they possibly could. They were just as important as the educators themselves.
The story in the book is that in her first year of running the Casa dei Bambini, the children one day got into the room by themselves, and the teacher hadn't arrived yet. And the teacher at that time was working under Dr. Montessori's guidance. And she had everything, not in shelves like we're used to today, but everything in the closet. And when it was work time, the teacher would open the closet and hand the children the work they were supposed to do. And the teacher made the decisions as to who was ready to do what. That day, the children got into the room. I think someone left it unlocked. And the children went to the closet themselves and took out the works. Now, you might have thought that the children take out works because of the color or because of the boy always wanted to do the one that was blue. But no, they went and got the work that was just appropriate for their own age, and they wanted to do the work that was right for them. And that changed Dr. Montessori's thinking from having the adult giving it to the child to letting the child choose the work that was appropriate for him or her.
Maria Montessori's legacy still lives on today. For example, there are over 8,000 Montessori schools across America alone. They all have different age groups. Some go all the way up through high school, while others only teach till kindergarten. They may not all be exactly the same, but they are striving for the same thought she had over 100 years ago, which is, when a child is young, their brain is best for molding. If you teach them valuable skills when they are younger, they can then use them throughout their life. Also, every child is different. Not everyone learns at the same pace. So if one teaches the child what they really need to know, and at a rate they can understand it, the child will be set for their next stage in life.
Her books form the philosophical basis of the school, and her materials form an important material basis for the school. But she died in 1952, and the field of education has made a lot of progress in the last 56 years. So that at a school like ours, I don't want to say all Montessori schools, but a school like ours, we're continually introducing new materials into the school. You'll see her materials, but you'll also see some of the same math curriculum and science curriculum, particularly with our older children, that you would see in any other independent school. These are just wonderful new materials that have come out, and we use them as well. So we see ourselves as based on the Montessori philosophy and using many of her materials, but also incorporating new materials into the work we do. The curriculum in the Montessori school covers the same subjects that it would at any school, but it's organized in a different way, and it emphasizes the child learning by himself or with peers, and a lot of independence on the part of children. So if I were to say the biggest difference between the curriculum here and another school would be the way in which we build children towards independence in their own learning.
Maria Montessori was a woman who knew exactly what she stood for, so she was not easily swayed. She was actually banned from Italy in the early 1900s after her first school opened because she would not give up children to Mussolini to become child soldiers. She was a woman with a drive and felt the only way something could be done right is if you do it yourself. When new schools opened up across the world, she wanted to be at every single one to make sure that teachers were teaching exactly the way she had meant for it to be taught. Maria Montessori proved to the world that one does not always have to play by the rules. If one sticks to their opinions and learns to accept new ideas, everyone around them can eventually benefit from it. By standing up for what she believed in, her actions spoke for themselves, and her legacies still live on today, and the proof of her hard work will still be there tomorrow.